Welcome back, Daisy Cakes! Today we're going to be picking a book from the 1960 Hugo Awards to add to my TBR. Why? Because I am Daisy Ex Machina, the drag queen detective who investigates all things speculative in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. If you haven't seen this series before, I find new authors and books by looking at the old Hugo Awards and picking one book from the nominees to add to my TBR. And today we're into the 1960s. I'll go over all the nominees, tell you who the winner is, and then I'll read the blurbs and pick one book to add to my TBR from these nominees. So let's get started. The nominees are Kurt Vonnegut for the Sirens of Titan, Gordon R. Dickson for Dorsai, also known as the Genetic General, Robert A. Heinlein for Starship Troopers, Murray Leinster for the Pirates of Ersatz, also known as the Pirates of Zan. And finally, Mark Phillips for The Sweet Little Old Lady, also known as Brain Twister. And the winner is Robert A. Heinlein for Starship Troopers. Now, I totally get why Starship Troopers won for the Hugos in 1960. I like the novel. I even like the movie adaptation, which I know is much different from the book, but I thought the movie was so satirical and well done. But anyway, I'm not going to pick it because I've read it, but I'll go ahead and read the blurb. The historians can't seem to settle whether to call this one the Third Space War or the Fourth, or whether the First Interstellar War fits better. We just call it the Bug War. Everything up to then and still later were incidents, patrols, or police actions. However, you are just as dead if you buy the farm in an incident as you are if you buy it in a declared war. In one of Robert A. Heinlein's most controversial bestsellers, a recruit of the future goes through the toughest boot camp in the universe and into battle with the Terran mobile infantry against mankind's most alarming enemy. Now, Starship Troopers originally was meant to be one of Heinlein's juveniles, but the publisher wouldn't accept it because it was so violent, and Heinlein decided to publish it as an adult book. And he sort of stopped doing his he did Podkayne of Mars, but he pretty much stopped doing juveniles after this incident. Like I said, I like the novel. It's very militaristic, and if you don't like military sci-fi, don't go for it. And this is a period where Heinlein does have a bit of a libertarian bent, which puts off some people. Like I said, doesn't bother me. I enjoyed the book. Let me know down in the comments whether you do or not either. Let's move on to the next one, Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut. Now, I have read this one as well, so I won't be picking it. And Vonnegut is such a fascinating writer. This is his period when he definitively was a science fiction author. No one could tell you otherwise, but after Slaughterhouse-Five, they sort of pushed him into literary fiction, even though I don't think his writing changed that much. Let's go ahead and read the blurb. The Sirens of Titan is an outrageous romp through space, time, and morality. The richest, most depraved man on Earth, Malachi Constant, is offered a chance to take a space journey to distant worlds with a beautiful woman at his side. Of course, there's a catch to the invitation and a prophetic vision about the purpose of human life that only Vonnegut has the courage to tell. If you haven't read Sirens of Titan, or if you haven't read Vonnegut, go ahead and check it out. Next is Gordon R. Dickson's Dorsai, also known as the Genetic General. Now, I have read Gordon R. Dickson before. I was a fan of his George and the Dragon series, I believe, which was fantasy. So I've heard of Dorsai, and looking at the cover, it looks like military sci-fi. I guess that was in the air in the 1960s. But let's go ahead and read the blurb. Child Cycle Number 1, Dorsai, Gordon R. Dickson, aka the Genetic General. Throughout the 14 worlds of humanity, no race is as feared and respected as the Dorsai. The ultimate warriors, they are known for their deadly rages, unbreakable honor, and fierce independence. No man rules the Dorsai, but their mastery of the art of war has made them the most valuable mercenaries in the known universe. Donald Graham is Dorsai, taller and harder than any ordinary man, but he is different as well, with talents that maze even his fellow Dorsai. And once he ventures out into the stars, the future will never be the same. Okay, this is definitely military sci-fi, and it seems kind of interesting. I'm not sure I'm in the mood for this type of novel right now, but I'm certainly open to it. I have read Gordon R. Dickson before, so I wouldn't be finding a new author. Okay, next up is The Pirates of Ersatz by Murray Leinster. I have not heard of Murray Leinster. This is what I love doing. It's finding new writers I've never heard of. I certainly haven't heard of the book. So I am very curious about this one. Interestingly enough, the blurb I'm going to read is to the LibriVox version of the audiobook. And LibriVox is free audiobooks that are in the public domain. Braun is the offspring of infamous space pirates, but instead of following in the family footsteps, he decides to become an electronic engineer. Unfortunately, every time he tries to get out, something pulls him back in. This is a tongue-in-cheek space adventure along the lines of The Stainless Steel Rat by Harry Harrison. It was originally published in the February to April issues of Astounding Science Fiction in 1959. Okay, well, I love The Stainless Steel Rat, so I like that comparison. And from the description, I'm assuming it's kind of a humorous science fiction story. And since it's from LibriVox, apparently this is in the public domain, so you can read it or hear it for free. Hear it in LibriVox or read it in Project Gutenberg. So that's very interesting. Finally, That Sweet Little Old Lady from another author I haven't heard of, Mark Phillips. I'm excited about this one as well, especially since the title is so unusual. So let's go ahead and read the blurb. Sci-Power Trilogy Number 1, That Sweet Little Old Lady by Mark Phillips from Astounding Science Fiction, September and October 1959. That Sweet Little Old Lady. Usually the toughest part of the job is stating the problem clearly, and the solution is then easy. This time, the FBI could state the problem easily. Solving it, though, was not. How do you catch a telepathic spy? What are we going to call that sweet little old lady now that mother is a dirty word? Dave Foley. In 1914, it was enemy aliens. In 1930, it was wobblies. In 1957, it was fellow travelers. And in 1971, they could be anywhere, Andrew J. Burris said, with an expression which bordered on exasperated horror. They could be all around us, heaven only knows. He pushed his chair back from his desk and stood up, a chunky little man with bright blue eyes and large hands. He paced to the window and looked out at Washington, and then he came back to the desk. A persistent office rumor held that he had become head of the FBI purely because he happened to have an initial J in his name. But in his case, the J stood for Jeremiah. And at the moment, his tone expressed all the hopelessness of that Old Testament prophet's lamentations. We're helpless, he said, looking at the young man with the crisp brown hair who was sitting across the desk. That's what it is. We're helpless. Kenneth Malone tried to look dependable. Just tell me what to do, he said. You're a good agent, Kenneth, Burris said. You're one of the best. That's why you've been picked for this job, and I want to say that I picked you personally. Believe me, there's never been anything like it before. I'll do my best, Malone said at random. He was 28, and he had been an FBI agent for 3 years. In that time, he had, among other things, managed to break up a gang of smugglers, track down a counterfeiting ring, and capture 3 kidnappers. For reasons which he could neither understand nor explain, no one seemed willing to attribute his record to luck. Okay, that's kind of wild. There's an excerpt, I guess, from the book in the blurb, but we do know this is about a telepathic spy. I just love this title, That Sweet Little Old Lady. There are terms here I don't know, like wobblies was a term used in the 1930s. This is some type of historical vernacular that I think I'd have to look up. So I'm very curious about this one. Very curious. Now, looking at all the nominees for 1960, I've read The Winner, Heinlein's Starship Troopers. I've read Vonnegut's Sirens and Titans. I'm familiar with Gordon R. Dickson. I have no idea who Murray Leinster is or Mark Phillips. The Mark Phillips I find interesting because it reminds me a lot of Three to Conquer by Eric Frank Russell, which I read for the 1956 Hugos. Except instead of telepathic aliens, it's telepathic spies. And I'm wondering how informed this is by the Cold War. I have to be honest, I'm not very interested in pirates. I've never been a big fan of pirates. So I think I am going to pick up That Sweet Little Old Lady, also known as Brain Twister by Mark Phillips. But I want to know about you. Which one of these books do you want to read? Or which books have you read? Let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.